everybody? It's your man James, Mr. Quinn Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. Hey, it's another going to be another trip in the Wayback Machine as we find out why it's great. And for those of you who don't know what Why Great is, it's where I take a comic book from the past that I really enjoyed. I tell you why I think it's so awesome and why you yourself should want to check it out. And today we're really going way back in time to 1982, almost like a whole other world back then compared to what we see now. But before we get into that, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Say if you like what you see here, drop a like down there to help out the algorithms. Always appreciated. Also, be sure to leave me comments because I always love to hear what the folks got to say. Let me know what you think about the book that I talk about here or anything else. I always like to hear from the people. You know, your voice matters around here. Also, be sure to share out links and, so others can come and join us. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe yourself so you don't miss any of the content that I'm putting out around here on the fairly regular. So, again, I thank you all for joining me today. And now we're going to get into our book. Hey, it's only a couple days till Halloween, right? Got the Halloween spirit. You know it's my favorite time of year. So, you knew I had to have something in the bag here for you guys to do a little Halloween-y type shtick. And so, of course, I do. So we're going to hit it up here. We're going to be Fantastic Four, number 248 from 1942. This is a goodie. It's not your typical Halloween horror, but it's still kind of a scary story when you really read into it. So let's get into all that. And it's fun because it also has a little bit of mystery to it as well. You see, it's always like giving you guys a little something you ain't expecting. So let's get into it right now, and we'll get me off the screen because you don't need to see my mug. And let's bring up our issue. And here we are, Fantastic Four, number 248 by the legend John Byrne. And, we'll just big it up here. And you can see you can kind of see the threat right from the start. And here it is, just crazy stuff going. You got the Inhumans in here. You got a giant eyeballing the city of Attilan. And, the FF in heartbreak as Sue Richards seems to be just melting away. And again, right there. Nightmare right there on the cover. That's certainly what it looks like. So yes, definitely one that is more on the scarier side. But then again, the FF to me always seemed to be where they could go into a horror thing since they explore the unknown and the mysteries of the universe and things like that, other dimensions. So it was always ripe for this kind of stuff. But again, you can see, look at the great work by John Byrne. I've always thought that the way Byrne drew the torch is the best torch that we ever had. I just love his lines, the way he does the flaming look. It just, maybe today with the modern coloring, they say it's better, but I don't think so. You'll never top this right here by John Byrne. And, again, his thing, also another one where he makes this king he seems big, but all kind of squatty, something a lot of people sometimes don't do well when they're doing the character. And of course, great image here of Black Bolt. I love that right here. But let's get into the issue now. And it starts out here. You can see it's Triton from the Inhumans. He's doing a little exploring on the blue area of the moon where Attilan has recently been put. And if you had been reading the book at the time, and again, just look at the details here. All those scales on his skin. I mean, my God, who does this? But he's doing a little exploring. He comes across this cave with a crystal lattice in it, and something happens here. The light which bursts across this time-lost cavern is like none ever seen by human eyes. So what are we dealing with here? Well, we don't know yet because the next scene is the FF arriving in Attilan on the moon. And I just love how they worked the title of the story in. Stan Lee presents the FF and the Inhumans trapped in an impossible nightmare. I love that. I love when they do things like that where they can work in like the title of the story into like the captioning. That's a great thing. But this is they show up on Attilan because they're having a big celebration in the naming of a new royal. The daughter of Quicksilver and Crystal is getting her name in this issue, and so it's like a big what to do for the royal family of the Inhumans, and so the FF are like the only humans who've been invited to this ceremony. So it's a very prestigious sort of thing, and it all starts out with this, and you can see here, again, I just look at that the fine face work. Johnny looks young, Reed looks older, Sue is beautiful. The thing is, the thing, and I just love how Byrne could capture, the different looks of the characters and make them all feel like exactly how they're supposed to look. And so the Inhumans show up. It's all funny games. And I like this too, how they kind of tell you all about who they are. Black Bolt, noble monarch whose slightest spoken syllable can level mountains. Gorgon, the power of whose thunderous hooves rival even that of the mighty muscled thing. Medusa, erstwhile member of Earth's most amazing quartet and beloved of Black Bolt, she whose living hair makes her one of the mightiest warriors of the great refuge. And then Karnak, whose computer-like brain can probe the secret flaws of any object and whose unerring blow can make devastating use of that flaw. So, I mean, they kind of like this right here, you just kind of get you all to speed on who these characters are. And again, this is something you don't see too much of anymore in the books, where they try to try to always kind of keep in mind the whole classic line of every comic is somebody's first. And so I like that they did this. And again, just beautiful line work, beautiful details. I mean, look at the hair on Gorgon's arms. I mean, just, beautiful stuff by Byrne. So they go in, they meet with Crystal and Quicksilver, and she tells them the name. She's going to name her Luna, since that's where their home is now, is on the moon, left from the Himalayas on Earth to the moon, and so they're going to call her Luna. And then, you can see some of the irascibleness of the character. Like, here's, the thing, yeah, she's kind of cute for a rugrat, and you get the little chastisement from Reed. And then you got this great character moment here. Again, it's just one panel, but it's such a great moment, because if you know any of the history of the characters, Johnny Storm was once in love with Crystal, but now she's with Quicksilver. She's married him. And he goes, "You seem troubled, Johnny Storm. I know the love you once held for Crystal was as great as my own." And he's like, "Oh, that's not the problem." He goes, "I pretty much adjusted to Crystal being your lady now, and I'm happy for both of you. I really am. I was just thinking about a lady I lost recently." And he's talking about Frankie Ray, who then was Nova and became the Herald of Galactus. So you see, again, even just a moment like this, just a quick little caption, and it encapsulates so much history of the characters, so much history of the series in just one image, and with just a little bit of dialogue. Again, this is something that has been kind of lost in comics, where they can kind of give you this great, lushness of the history of the characters, and I love that stuff. But then all of a sudden, something happens, and what's this? He goes, more than just gravity has been disrupted here. With the vertiginous lurch that feels like an elevator instantly climbing 1,000 floors, the ever-constant moon loops up out of its familiar orbit. Within moments, it has climbed high above the plane of the ecliptic and left the solar system behind. So something has stolen the Earth's moon while they're on it. And so, there's chaos involved because gravity is now not working properly. And you can see here, she calls out, look at this. And I just love these long, narrow panels, the way he sets this up, from the perspective of, of the people on the moon. And you can see here, it's closer, as it gets closer and closer and closer. And you can see, look at how big, how monstrous this door is compared to the moon. I love that. I love how he, great use of perspective in this, where it looks almost like, oh, this is just some alien craft, but no, it's kind of, that's decent size. And, oh no, it's pretty big. And no, it's really big. No, it is freaking huge. This is like a bouncy ball compared to the size of this alien craft here. And so you can see they got the Earth, they got the planet in there. It's hooked up to some machinery, and so they ask, of course they ask Reed, how is this all possible? He goes, I don't know. To construct an artifact so huge would require all the raw material of a dozen stellar systems. So Reed is, his brain is working overtime trying to understand all of this as gravity gets restored. So then, of course, it's time to go into action, and Black Bolt, gets his people going. Meanwhile, Reed sends Johnny out to check out everything, and he goes, I hope there weren't too many Inhumans on the streets when the gravity cut. They'd have been hurled into space. So see, even there, they're noting how dangerous all this is. So again, keep all this in mind as we're watching this. And then he flies up a high, and he goes, it's incredible. He goes, normally I couldn't fly above the rim crater, the rim crater system that holds the atmosphere in the blue area of the moon, but now I can fly over the moon's surface. And so he's going to go investigate even further. Meanwhile, and then of course, what's this? It's crumbling. The pull of gravity is destroying the moon. So the gravity inside this ship is actually destroying the moon. Meanwhile, Black Bolt gets the rest of the team and they head out, to investigate themselves. And he goes, of course, so many of the Inhumans have the power of flight. They have retired their old flying machines. So it's like in a museum of some kind, museum of old technology that they don't use. And I love this right here. They get in, the thing says, no, there ain't nothing an old jet jockey like me can't pilot. And so it's good where he goes, less than 20 minutes later, the thunder of giant engines announces the launch of a vessel which has not flown in 100 generations of man. So that's 2,000 years. So that's how old this technology is supposed to be. 2,000-year-old technology. I just love that. Again, the way Byrne paints the picture in the dialogue and in the captions. He really gives you that lushness of the history of what you're watching. So they take off to see what they can see. And he goes, the scope of the vessel beggars comprehension, and yet atmosphere and gravity are registering as Earth normal. And then, all right, Reed, enough respectful. Oh, okay, we got to make plans. It's just the classic, a classic moment here between the Thing and Reed Richards. They're always doing, shut up, big brain. All your $20 words are giving me a headache. He always has that attitude, and here it is here. So they go to park the ship and check out the vessel that they're in. He goes, she's wondering who's. So Sue wonders who are the people who have this ship, this size. And he goes, perhaps no race at all, Sue. I'm beginning to suspect this is an automated ship because of the machine. He goes, all the machine surfaces are as smooth as if they were tooled by beings no larger than us. Giants would produce surfaces very rough to creatures of our relative size. So again, Reed Richards constantly thinking throughout this whole thing. And then the Thing points out that she goes, odd. I didn't notice it until you pointed it out. Some form of servo access, perhaps. This ship may have huge maintenance robots, if no living crew. But even as Reed speaks, there it is. Here's our threat. The doorway is more than 1,000 miles distant, yet he looms over them as if he were mere inches away. His mass rivals that of the planet Earth itself, and the intelligence which shines in his alien eyes makes one thing terribly clear: this is no robot. And you can see, just the size differential. Our group here is just like fly specks compared to this creature, this alien. So the alien starts to check out, and you can see how damaged the moon is from being in this atmosphere and this gravity of this ship. And of course, here's like a little take on our cover here, where the alien's investigating. Oblivious to the terror his presence generates, the alien seems unaware that the city is even there. To his eyes, all of Attilan is less than that of a grain of sand, and his probing fingers pass over the blue area. The gravitational field surrounding his vast body sunders the gleaming towers like so many matchsticks. In the briefest twinkling of an eye, the great refuge is laid low. Attilan is no more. So here you got the destruction of the Inhumans city. And it's not even like, on purpose. It's not like it was an evil mind that did this. It's just an alien investigating the same way, Reed Richards and them would investigate. And it's just, this is the result. It's just like things just keep getting worse. Moon taken out of its orbit. Maybe some Inhumans got lost, in the loss of gravity and are out in space dead. You got the moon has been half blown up. Now you got the city of Attilan is destroyed. It just keeps getting worse and worse. So Johnny finally shows up, and he almost passes out because his flame has been so extinguished. And he goes, take it easy, kid. You've pushed yourself too far. You shouldn't have flown all the way on your own. He goes, I don't think you could have, Ben. And he goes, and so she asks, what's he mean? He goes, I'm not sure, darling, but everything is clearly not as it appears. That giant is too huge to survive with such a human bodily proportions. His own weight would shatter his legs. And do you really believe Johnny could fly here from the moon? That must be 100,000 miles or more. So you can see, again, Reed's analytical mind is seeing there's something not quite right here. But what is it? What's the secret? What's the mystery behind all this? But before we can do that, the Inhumans then attack on their own, and they take their ships and attack the alien to try to stop him from destroying everything. And and here it is again. And Reed Richards knows, even as he watches them, that to do so is impossible, that no human eye could see them across so vast a distance, like to see the ships. So how did the thing see this? But, they attack the alien, and he goes, and the storm of high-powered destruction that rains down upon his flesh disturbs him not at all. So, like, they're completely useless, the fools, their weaponry is useless against so giant a target. We've got to call them off. And so Black Bolt nods, and then we see something we've never seen before. Black Bolt speaks. And you can see here, hear me, my people, heed the voice of Black Bolt, break off your attack. The alien has not deliberately harmed us. We must speak to him in words of reason. And again, this is Black Bolt. So his mirror, you saw at the beginning of the story when we first were introduced to the Inhumans, they say his merest utterance can like shatter mountains, and here he is like yelling out to his people. And yet here's Reed. I don't understand. The shockwaves created by Black Bolt's voice should be causing immeasurable destruction, but they aren't. See, again, another mystery. What is going on here? So they call off the attack, but then the alien notices, and the alien, seeming for the first time to grow aware that he is not alone, stoops to examine the source of the voice. The tiny humans are microscopic to him, far too small to be seen, but not too small to be acted upon. Now, what is this? He pulls something from his belt, and not a microscope, Ben. All too familiar method of dealing with pests. He says, so Johnny, you're using bug spray on us. He goes, I'm not. Well, if I can help it, Johnny takes off. And again, look at Reed's mind. It's keep running overtime. It's happening again. Johnny's flame shouldn't be nearly replenished yet, but yet it is, and not just replenished, but to the point he can do what he says. He's going to use his Nova Flame to try to get this alien to stop and to pay attention. So, let's see him ignore this. Enough power to lay waste to a hemisphere is blast at the giant alien. His action is instinctive and lethal. Look at that. Swatted like a fly. And that's it. The Human Torch is dead. Just bam. Just, again, just like he did to the city of Attilan, the alien just not even trying to kill. And he's just destroying them as if they are nothing. Sue goes crazy, seeing her brother die, but then again, Reed with the analytical mind. It's not possible we could have seen that impact across such a distance. Am I being too analytical? Has Johnny just been killed? Yet I can't shake the feeling. No time to worry about that now. As the spray gets in, she calls on Sue to use her force field to protect them. But what's this? It can't be. The mist is eating right through my force field. So there's no saving them that way. And then, so the thing brings into action, he's going to tear a way out. But look at this. Look at this down here. It's small, but you got to pay attention. Look at this. You got Black Bolt is coughing. He goes, more impossibilities. Black Bolt is coughing aloud. Yet that sound should be enough to blast away the ledge and like a nuclear device. And as the thing Rip tries to rip his way to an opening to save everybody, blast. He grabbed this hunk of junk too fast for me to let go. He's trying to see what tore out his machinery, and he yells at him, but it's no good. I'm too small. And then, again, this is another one. Oh, look at this. Then with a sudden dismissing gesture, the alien tosses away the scrap of metal, and with it the hapless thing. 5,000 miles high and falling, the thing plummets towards the gleaming metal floor. It will take him most of the day to hit. And I love this image right here of these panels. You see the thing, the big image that then gets blurred out as he falls, and he gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I just love that. Again, the camera work, the choice of how to lay out these panels. Byrne shows he is a master of comic book storytelling. This is just a perfect visual representation of you can feel yourself almost falling with the thing. And then, but Reed Richards will not see the impact. And then Reed just, screams out. And then, but then Sue has a problem. Sue, oh dear heaven, she sags into his arms like a broken toy. And as she does, he feels her flesh and bone grow liquid beneath her uniform. And then look at it, she just melts away. Just like on the cover, she melts away. And this is madness. It can't be. It can't. And just, his mind is reeling from all that he's seeing, and Reed Richards just screaming out, "No, no, no!" And then with the biggest one, and then suddenly, look, it feels much like the snapping of a great elastic band, and it's only when the subtle pressures within their minds is so suddenly removed that they are even become aware that it was present, and then all of a sudden everybody's back. We're back in the Tillin. It's like we never left. What's going on here? And so she runs to Reed. She just saw him getting blasted into atoms by Dr. Doom, and he goes, "I saw you die out in space, but it's all over now." And so, he asked, what's going on? He's here. Medusa, saw the death of Black Bolt. He goes, I thought it was all over. I thought we were goners. He goes, clearly some hideous force invaded our minds, torturing us with nightmares culled from our greatest fears, confusing us with impossibilities. And so what kind of force? Well, we may never know. That's Reed Richards' answer. We may never know the answer to that question. He goes, not a complete answer, perhaps, Reed Richards. But here in the hidden grotto, some 20 miles from Attilan, endings and beginnings meet as one. And we can see here it is. We saw at the very beginning. See, you forgot about Triton, didn't you? You forgot. You didn't think about him because of all the craziness you just got done seeing people just dying and destruction of the moon and Attilan and, the Thing's death, the Torch's death, Sue Richards' death, all this death and destruction. And you totally forgot about Triton, didn't you? That's the thing. He goes, and he goes, it's over. I've triumphed over, my mind has triumphed. He goes, and so he decides he must return back to Attilan. He goes, but he's concerned if there's more of these crystals. He goes, they created a crystal lattice which bores into living mind, creating horrible nightmares. I am lucky to have won over its influence. Yet somehow I feel the victory was not mine alone. As I writhed in final torment, I sensed the touch of another mind. And of course, we all know whose mind that is. It's the mind of Mr. Fantastic. And he even says it, that, it was Reed Richards' anguished denial of his wife's destruction that for a moment broke the evil spell and gave the green inhuman enough time to strike, to smash the lattice, as you see here. The hand that crafted this crystal dreamweaver acted out of hate, consuming hate of all that thinks and lives. Yet what defeated it? No more than the simple, pure emotion men call love. Just, so a happy ending, but, a poignant one. And again, just look at the details on Triton in these panels. I mean, again, the scale work, just all of that detail. And again, if you notice in a lot of these pages, Byrne has backgrounds too. So it's not like he spent all this time on figure work and then said, well, I'll just skimp and not have any backgrounds. There's crazy amounts. I look at the details in these backgrounds here. I mean, it's just insane. And there's so many pages in this book where you see all the technology of inside that alien ship on when they're looking at the walls. So much detail. Byrne, again, at this point, he was just like the man. He was the guy who was like every kid, every artist, they wanted to be John Byrne to be able to do like this. And again, a very fun, very interesting story. Again, it's not a big what to do issue. It's not a crossover. It's not a big introduction of villains or whatever. It's just a quiet little story about our inner fears. This whole, alien crystal lattice acted on the fears inside of us, inside of the living. And that's how it draws its power to affect you. And, I just love this. When you think Halloween, you think of the evil horrors from without, like your killers and your ghosts and goblins and monsters. But what about the monsters that dwell within us? Our fears, our nightmares, the darkness that we try to resist every day. And this plays into that. I love that. So again, kind of like a little moral lesson in all of this too. It's not just a case of, hey, here's a great action adventure story, or even just a great horror, jump scare thing. It's look, you don't need to find evil without. Evil can darkness can come from within. And that's usually the evil and darkness is the toughest to defend against. And yet that's exactly what happened in this issue. And again, like I said, just so many great moments, the things fall, Sue's death, this Torch's death. I mean, it was just like one one gut punch after another. You just boom, 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 boom. Oh my God, they're all dropping like 10 pins. Is this the end of the FF against a giant alien? And again, it's all the unknown. But again, as you saw throughout, like this scene here with Black Bolt speaking, and you can see constantly the whole time Reed was thinking. And that's what I loved about this. This is a really good spotlight on the character of Reed Richards and his analytical mind, the way he always is thinking, even when he's in action, even when he's calling the shots, even when he's trying to investigate something, he's always thinking, and he's always paying attention. He's very highly observant, and that's again an aspect you don't really see much in the character today. If you read the modern stuff, Reed Richards isn't like this now. But this is how he was back then, and I love this kind of thing. The very analytical mind of Reed Richards, and I also love stuff like like this. Like I said, I just love the perspective that Byrne used in these panels and kept it all silent. There's not a single word of dialogue. There's not a single caption. Just he let the art speak for itself on this page. And that's a pretty impressive thing when doing a book like this. And again, like I said, just the character moments like this between Quicksilver and Johnny Storm, or Ben Grimm being the gruff uncle type, as he makes his little cracks, and just beautiful, beautiful stuff. The intro of the Inhumans, reintroducing them to everybody for like as if it's the first time. It's just very well done. Again, a classic done in one issue that is exactly the kind of stories that made the Fantastic Four so popular, that made them, fan favorites. And again, by probably one of the people who anyone would say is most responsible for making them the icons that they are. The great John Byrne, whose touch on many characters has influenced him. But I think out of all the books he's worked on, none have benefited more from his touch than the Fantastic Four did. And again, it's for simple issues like this. He took the unknown and the fears from within and crafted a great story, of horror, and yet ultimately of triumph of the human spirit. And I just love that about it. It's got, like I said, a morality to it that you don't really see in comics anymore. And again, he played with the rich history of the Fantastic Four and the Inhumans, and really layered it on to make it something much more impactful than the actual sum of the parts would be. Like if you just kind of baselined what the story is about, there's not really a whole lot there, but the way he laid it out and the way he presented it, it made it feel much more impactful, much more filling, of a story. And I really enjoyed that about it. So yeah, definitely is one to check out if you haven't. Fantastic Four number 248 from 1992. It's a classic issue, classic story, classic John Byrne. It's everything you would want. When you saw the FF movie, this is what it should have been. It should have been something like this instead of what we got. And this is the Fantastic Four, folks. This is Marvel's first super team, and it's how they should always be presented, as far as I'm concerned. So there we go. Another one of the books. Another Why It's Great. Fantastic Four 248. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Because like I said, it was a lot of fun bringing that to you. I guess the John Byrne run is probably one of the high watermarks of the series for the Fantastic Four, and it's off. Some have tried to rival it, but yet none can, I think, surpass it. And so definitely a high watermark period for the characters, and definitely a great little done-in-one story that you can share, not just with yourself, but with your children. And you don't have to worry about certain elements being in it that are maybe inappropriate or whatnot. And again, just classic storytelling, classic superhero, and classic into the mysteries of the unknown. Which to me is always what the FF should be about. And it's just beautifully presented by John Byrne. This is why the man is a legend in the industry, and why he is so beloved by so many people. His work, and so definitely check it out if you can. And I want to thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to have some more stuff for you soon. I'm going to got another artistry appreciation coming up, and then of course I've got the live stream I plan to do on Halloween. So you definitely don't want to miss that. I got some links down here below to some stuff you can check out. You can check out, the past issues of episodes of Why It's Great, and artistry appreciation, and some other stuff. So definitely check those out. And again, I thank you all for joining me today. Please like, share, subscribe, and all the good stuff. And I will be back soon with some more stuff. And until next time, take care.